welcome back to our homestead. My family and I were away on vacation this week, and when we came home, I found these guys in my garden. I mean, I can't even guesstimate how big this is and how heavy, but someone could get hurt. And it's known that zucchinis can grow 1 inch to 2 inches in a day. It's not crazy how fast they grow. So I have a big basket here of these way overgrown zucchinis. And we love to cook them fresh. We like to freeze them. We like to preserve them in other ways. And I just made a video about Georgian style zucchini spread, and I will put up a link here somewhere. It's zucchini ikra. It's delicious. Mwah. But also I like to follow a principle that when in abundance today, we like to store away for tomorrow. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be preserving zucchinis by dehydrating them on these trays, and I'm going to do it in 2 ways. I'm going to be making zucchini chips and zucchini powder. So let's talk about how we can preserve it by dehydrating. So let's start looking at the zucchini. Well, it's nicely washed. I'm going to be removing the ends because I don't need the ends. Okay, and also I'm gonna put them on the side for the chickens to enjoy. But also I'm going to be looking inside of them, because if the seeds are very big and very mature, we don't want them. So I'm going to be scooping out those seeds and giving them to my chickens to enjoy. They're gonna love it. And as I was correct. Do you see all these huge seeds in here? I don't like how they're so big. So I'm just gonna scoop them out just like this with a spoon. And we're gonna throw them into a bin for the chickens to enjoy, and they're gonna love it. All right, so this can be done very low tech, just a cutting board and maybe a sharp knife. Or we can use something else to help us. Okay, so step number 1, I'm going to be focusing right now just on making the powder, the green powder, the zucchini powder. It's a superfood, really. It's filled with vitamins, and it's so cheap, much cheaper than if we were to buy it at the store, right? You can make a green powder. It can be used in your smoothies. It can be used in baking. Did you know you can dehydrate zucchini, turn it into a powder, and then use that powder to make zucchini bread in the middle of the winter? That's right. You don't have to run to the superstore and supermarket, and you're gonna have it right there on your pantry shelf, because it's gonna be shelf stable. So I'm just chopping them into probably half an inch or so, about a half an inch, I would say, slices. It doesn't really matter. And I'll show you how we can cut this so much faster than using just a cutting board and a knife. And I have this massive knife, but it works so well. It makes my job so much faster. Okay, so let me show you my little trick that I like to do. I have this cool little device, this little chopping machine, right? And it has a little container on the bottom, and it's going to catch everything. So in that, there are 2 grids that we can use, a very small one or a little bigger. And I feel that I want to go with a slightly bigger one. I do have to warn you, it's very sharp, so be very careful. So it's locked into place, and there's so many different types of these machines available online on Amazon, and I will put up a link for you guys so you can buy it. And they're not expensive, and I've had one machine for I think 5 years, and I've used it all the time. All right, and I'm just going to be chopping it. Done. Look how fast. You can put a couple of them. All right, I know it's a little loud, but it works very, very quickly. And all I'm doing right now, I'm just chopping them into little cubes. Look at this tiny little pretty cubes. They're going to help us to dehydrate them nice and even, and that's what we're looking for, because we don't want one chunk to be huge and one chunk to be little, and one of them is going to be super dry and the other one's still going to be leathery moist. We want them to be all drying at the same speed. So it's going to take me a minute because I'm going to be chopping them all into little chunks, into little squares. All right, so I have a whole bowl of them chopped up into little squares, and all I'm doing right now, I'm gonna spread them in a single layer right on top of my dehydrator tray. My dehydrator trays come with this little plastic, I think they're silicone. They look like a mesh, so the air goes through them very easily. It's a beautiful mesh, so the air circulates. If by any chance you don't have a dehydrator, which I do recommend using a dehydrator because it controls the temperature beautifully, and there's different setting for vegetables and for herbs and for jerky if you want to do with meat or anything like that. So all I'm doing right now is a single layer. So if you don't have a dehydrator, it can be done in the oven, but it's a little bit more difficult in the oven because the oven can accidentally cook them, which we don't want to cook them. We want to dehydrate them until they become nice and dry. All right, so I'm just gonna keep making trays full of these, and these little squares are going to be allocated for making zucchini flour or zucchini powder. Okay, and it can be baked with, it can be added to brownies, it can be added to zucchini bread recipe or pumpkin recipe or muffins, that sort of thing, pancakes, or it can be added to your smoothie to bring beautiful, much needed vitamins and nutrients in the winter months. Zucchini cubes that are intended for zucchini powder are in a dehydrator. I set the dehydrator to the temperature of a vegetable, which is 125 degree Fahrenheit. And the timing, you really have to guesstimate and check on it because it all depends on the humidity of the room. Right now it is August here in New England and it's so humid. So even that affects the time of drying. So I'm going to check on it probably in about 8 hours, and then I'm going to see how they are. They need to be very dry. If they are still pliable and if there's any moisture left, they're not ready to pulverize them and turn them into powder. They have to be completely dry. Notice that I did not blanch them. And I did not steam blanch them either because it is a very soft vegetable and it does not require that. It's just going to dehydrate on its own without any pre-treating. The next step we're going to be doing today, we're going to be making zucchini chips and we're going to flavor them. Even though I have these really big zucchinis, for the chips, it is better that I use smaller ones. Why? Because they're not going to be chips if I cut them in half and remove all the insides, all the seeds out of them. So I have these smaller size and that's what I'm going to be using to make chips. They're nicely washed and I do see that there's one little side that's kind of yellowed. So I'm just going to peel it just because I don't like it. Okay, so then I'm going to cut off the ends because I don't need the ends and I need to slice them, and I can slice them into circles or I can do a little fancy one and slice them a little bit on the edge like this, on an angle, and they're going to be very pretty little chips. Now, as far as how thick to do them, the thicker I cut them, the longer it will take to dehydrate them. So I am doing about 1/4 of an inch. So this is about 1/2 centimeter. And that's what I'm doing, slightly at an angle, and they're gonna be very pretty. See how the seeds are barely any? And that is perfect to make chips. They will shrivel up a little bit, especially because the skins are on. Because the skin's on, they're gonna shrivel up, but they're gonna be so pretty and so crispy and so delicious. So I'm just gonna finish cutting them all up. And now let me grab a dehydrating tray and I'll show you what I'm gonna do. This is fun. All right, I'm gonna lay them down one after another, just like this. Not overcrowding, but there's plenty of space for them. All right, I'm just gonna lay them down one after another. Okay, just like this. And I'm gonna be thinking about different spices that I need to use. And this should be to taste. I'm telling you, totally to taste. So I know that my husband loves spicy things. He loves spicy things. Me, not so much. So for him, I'm gonna be doing something a little spicy. I have this spice that I bought in the Amish country, and it's called farm dust seasoning. And it's a combination of a little bit of garlic powder and black pepper and a little bit of salt. And oh, it smells also good. So I'm gonna use that as my base, but you guys can use a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and it's gonna be enough. Let me just grab a teaspoon, because I think it's gonna be easier with a teaspoon. And I'm just gonna take a little bit and just dust on top, just like this. Okay, because it's gonna be giving our zucchinis, because zucchini is a very bland, very neutral vegetable, right? Everyone knows that you can manipulate it any way you want to, and you can make it taste like anything you want. So just a little bit of that deliciousness. All right, just like this. And it's a really, really good base. But because my husband likes spicy, I'm gonna be dusting a little bit of cayenne pepper. And I will know that this is his tray. It's a little bit of cayenne pepper on top. And it can be as much or as little as you want. All right, just like this. Look at that. It's not beautiful? And guess what, my friends? This tray is ready for dehydrator. I'll put it aside for now. All right, so I sliced 2 medium size. Some of them are a little big, but it doesn't really matter. All right, so we can also season them in a different way. You saw me just sprinkling on top, or we can do this. And let me show you another one of my favorite seasonings, and it's called Organic Everything Bagel Seasoning. And it has everything you want in here. And all I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna sprinkle on top. And because the zucchinis are a little moist, so they're going to grab onto these spices. And I'm just gonna toss them all together like this. All right, just like this. And it smells really, really nice in my kitchen right now. To this, I also like to add a little bit of, what is this called? Garlic powder, a little bit of garlic powder. And also I'm gonna just take a little bit of garlic powder and sprinkle in here. And that's gonna be a good tasting zucchini chips. I'm just gonna toss it all around. I'm not adding any oil. There's no need for that, absolutely not. And I'm just tossing it so everything is covered nicely. So now I'm gonna lay everything on a tray, and they season both sides, not just one. And again, I'm not gonna overcrowd them, but side by side, there's plenty of airflow, and they're gonna be just going on a tray. And also, this tray is gonna go into my dehydrator. Because some of these seasonings have a little bit of salt in them, it's not unusual that it's gonna draw out the fluid, but it's okay because they're going into a dehydrator where the dehydrator will take care of it. All right, so therefore they're gonna shrink even more, but that's what we're looking for. We're looking for making a chip. All right, I think I can put one more right here. All right, this tray is full. All right, another tray. I will lay them all out. I feel like I cut this one, I think, a little bit too thick. Let me fix this one. I think it's too thick, Mama. A little too thick. There you go. A little bit of seasoning on it. A little bit of seasoning on it. All right, and they're gonna go into the tray. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna check on them in about 8 hours and see how they are. They should be very dry. They may be a little pliable, especially when it comes to chips, but they should be very, very dry. If in 8 hours they're not dry, I'm gonna increase the time and I'm gonna keep checking on them. So friends, I'll see you tomorrow, most likely because it's already getting later in the evening. So I'll see you tomorrow and I'll show you how we're gonna turn and how we're gonna store these dried, dehydrated zucchinis.
Yo, you wanna try some? Yum! Yum, Yo-Yo! You want some? No? Here. Here, Yo-Yo. She doesn't want any more. You want some? You want some? Buddy.
And 12 hours later, this is what they look like. Nice and dry little hockey pucks. They're a little stuck. That's not unusual, that sometimes they get stuck. So this is my little circles. They're gonna be our little chips. Unfortunately, some of them stuck. And these are my little cubes, and look how little they became. Tiny, tiny little hard little specks like this. So, all right, so now this is the time for me to package them and put them away. And I'm gonna do that in a clean and very dry jar. And I'm gonna make sure that it's very clean. And all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start putting all of these little circles, these little chips right in there. Since I made 2 different flavors, I can separate them by flavors. So the spicy ones are gonna be for my husband, and then the other ones are gonna be for me and everyone else. And it's just amazing how out of that gigantic big pile that I had, oh, this one broke. That's all we have. Isn't that something? Isn't that amazing? All right, so I'm just gonna pile them all in here. I've noticed that those chips that were cut a little thicker are not sticking. And those that were very, very thin, they definitely stuck to my trays. But it's okay, it's still gonna be delicious. So these ones I had with everything bagel seasoning. And then I also added a little bit of garlic powder to it. Yum. And this one was, okay, see, that's the other one I've noticed. So the one that did not have all of the skin around, they're sticking more. And those that had skin all the way around are not sticking as much. So I am working very fast. So this is what I wanted to tell you guys about. For those of us who live in a very humid environment, like such as New England, after anything being dehydrated in your trays, you gotta work fast. I have to work fast to put them away into a dry environment. Why? Because if I left them in my kitchen for a few hours, okay, or in my house for a few hours, they will reabsorb moisture and they will be no good. They have to be hard little hockey pucks. And if they're not,
then they will actually begin to reabsorb moisture again, and they will be no good. They will invite mold and they'll go bad on you. So this is something that we need to work fast after you take them out of your dehydrator. So like I've said, it took 12 hours for them to dehydrate, so I left them overnight, and this is the next day that I'm taking them out. All right, so they're all in a jar, and I'm going to be sealing them in a jar. I'm going to be using this little air removing machines. I will put a link for you guys in the description box, and I will tag this product. It's super cool, super not expensive at all. Okay, put a little oxygen absorber inside, and if you have a silica packet, that probably would work as well. So this goes right on top. I press the bottom, press the button, and it's beginning to remove air. This little machine comes with 2 attachments. You can put this attachment inside, and that's going to be for the regular mouth, and this is for the wide mouth jars. All right, so now we're going to be working on this little pebbles, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take them all off of these trays and just gather them together in a bowl, and then I'm going to turn them into powder. And this powder can be used later for baking anything. It can be added to thicken up soups or baking muffins or bread or anything else you like. I've seen people even add them to the brownies to thicken up the brownies instead of using a lot of flour. Okay, so now how can we turn this into powder? That can be used, that can be done, I should say, in the food processor if you have a very strong food processor or blender. In my case, I have a little tool I bought that I really, really like, and I'm using it only for herbs and for this kind of household things. I have this cool little spice blender or coffee blender that I use only for spices or for herbs, not for coffee, because it's going to absorb the flavor of coffee, so I'm trying to avoid that. So I'm just going to put it in here, and I'm going to pulverize it into powder. Look at that. And as always, I'm going to store everything in a very dry, clean jar. And that's where it's going to be going, my green, beautiful zucchini powder. And just to think, from that gigantic pile of zucchinis, that's all we got. So it's probably close to a pint here. But I'm going to continue working on it throughout the season because I have a whole lot more zucchinis growing. As always, I'm going to put a little oxygen absorber, and I'm going to seal it as well by pushing this down. Let me see if I can do it one-handed. Press the button. It's pretty quick. It's going to seal it, and it's going to protect from any oxygen going in there. And then every time I open it, I'm going to use this machine to reseal it again to keep all of my dried goodies nice and safe. Okay, friends, so here we are. We have 2 jars of zucchini chips, spicy and not spicy, and half a jar, but I'm going to keep adding to it, of zucchini powder. How exciting is this? And this can be so versatile, used in so many places and things. So friends, I hope you are encouraged to dehydrate zucchinis. So be encouraged and try something new.